And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mind Split Cafe. My man Matt, what's going on today?
Man, I'm chilling like a villain on penicillin. How are you today, Chris?
I'm good, man. I'm just glad you're on this one because I know last time we interviewed with John in the Connect Foundation, you weren't available. You were actually a little busy with some meetings. So now
Yeah,
we
well,
actually what was
the
that? I'm
thing
sorry.
the thing is that I don't live too far from John, so John and I connect all the time. So yeah, I know I missed his episode last time, but I'm so glad he's back this time.
Yeah.
Because I can't get enough of John. Kind of a backstory. He and I do like a lunch once a month somewhere. I'll either go towards him or he'll come up towards me, and we'll pick different spots. And it's kind of a break. Like, he's one of my only friends here in San Diego, and so it's just kind of like a catch up. So it's definitely nice to have John, around, because he's such a great human being.
Yeah,
And I and
absolutely.
I
And we
try
have
all
his
the time, to make sure that when Matt and I meet up, I have strange and unique people to introduce him to.
Oh yeah, for sure. We want that'll be for another episode, right? But
well, I was
speaking
about
of
to say,
strange
did
and
you just
interesting, speaking of strange and interesting people, we've got Tim here. Tim, welcome to the show. How are you?
No, I'm doing great. It's glad to be on here this time. Again, yeah, last time I think I was on travel or something crazy, but yeah, good to be up here. And it's awesome to see that you met the most interesting human in the universe at some point. So,
I have John to thank for that, because he has introduced me to the most interesting man in the world. Like, literally, the guy from the Dos Equis commercial was inspired by our mutual friend that John and
oh,
I share. Like, he is a fascinating human being.
Matt,
wow,
I
now
actually
I'm feeling a
introduced
little
Tim
left
to him when
out.
he was out here.
Oh, you've met Alan also, Tim, when you came out here.
oh yeah, my matter of fact, it was a year ago exactly. My youngest son was turning 14, and we were out in San Diego, went surfing out in La Jolla,
Uh
and
huh.
and yeah, so he got to meet old Al. It was a good time.
Oh, nice. Now, Tim, were you at the the Fortunate Son restaurant when I met John?
N- No, that was my cousin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I was like, this is gonna be a crazy story. Okay, so yeah, but
it's going to be one anyway, I'm sure.
yeah, so we'll get into how John and I met on another episode. But I'm fortunate, no pun intended, because we met at Fortunate Son. I'm fortunate that I met John, and he's definitely been a positive influence in my life ever since. So, welcome to the show, Tim and John. Chris, let's get this thing going. Let's give the people what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, John. We kind of left off at a certain point in your last episode. So let's pick up there. Like, what have you been doing since the last time you've been on our show? What strides have you made? Let's start with that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and again, a super honored to be with you guys and have Tim here with us today. I think the last time we talked, I was coming close to start transitioning out of the military and retiring after 30 years, and I don't think Tim was quite there yet. But now Tim's fully retired, and I'm a couple months away, and I can't even tell you all the crazy stuff that's been, that entails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could only imagine.
Well,
Yeah,
John, kind of shed some light on the transitioning that you're. And that didn't come out right, but the transition phase
mm,
of
mm,
where you're entering into retirement, right? Which
mhm,
is like August, September, right? That's when you're fully
that's right.
retired.
Right.
But the programs that you're in to help transition from being active duty to now, retired in 6 months, right? And so, kind of shed some light. I want you to talk to him about the Harvard Business, the school, the classes you've been taking. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you do some interesting stuff in the past couple days?
Yeah, and I really have to give a shout out. There's several nonprofit organizations that live in that space of specifically transitioning into the civilian world again after a certain amount of time in the military. Both Tim and I are, and Tim can talk about this too. Both Tim and I are super lucky to get a part of the Honor Foundation, which it's got 7 campuses around the United States, and they do a really intensive, amazing 3-month program where the first month is really ripping off the uniform and figuring out if you could do anything you want to do, what would it be? And they use the Simon Sinek Find the Why program and that, and then it transitions once you find the why into a month long of building your resume and your LinkedIn account and your compensation package along with that. Just an extremely high-end program, and I got lucky to talk to Matt Stevenson, who is one of the the CEOs in the Honor Foundation, and we had a really good talk. And it's just, they've been around for about 14 years, but they've been evolving every year. To talk about a true learning organization.
That's amazing. Now,
And
one of the questions that I thought of this morning, because I knew we were going to do the call, but going for, and you and I talked about this the other day, John, is the language of being full-time in military, like the military ease, right?
the
language,
military,
right? Military ease, and then the language, how to translate those 2 languages, right? And that's where a lot of people have that, where they kind of get stuck, right?
Disconnect.
Where they go from speaking military to now being in the civilian world and having to speak civilianese or whatever, right? So how does, the question that I have is, and this is for you too, Tim, do you feel anxiety when, does anxiety come in to where you've been kind of programmed for so long, and now Tim's already retired and you're creeping up, but does anxiety and stress kind of set in during that time period where it's like, hey, you're about to be full-fledged civilian? Like, what is that like?
I'll tell you what, I'll give that over to Tim, because I feel like he felt a lot more anxiety than I do sitting on the beach down here in Imperial Beach. So
you're in a nice spot, John.
Wait, you and Matt always rub it in that California is nice. I'm gonna have to send you guys to a snowy place or something.
No, I'm not going. No. Yeah, go ahead, Tim. I'd like to hear this. Did you feel that anxiety or that stress, kind of in that period of transitioning to civilian life?
So yeah, that's man, we could unpack that question a lot of ways. So hey, I feel anxiety a lot regardless.
Okay.
But I think like as I was coming close to actually being out, and the Honor Foundation has been an absolute phenomenal program. But I think my wife was probably more stressed than I was, because I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? There's opportunities everywhere in the world. Just, if you're going to worry about stuff, like, all you're going to do is get yourself worked up and give yourself a bad day. So I kind of took a step back and slowed down. And again, and John, I mean, we talk all the time, but over the last few years, I really started learning how to do that and not running in the red at 1,000 miles an hour every day. And it was funny because back in August of last year, I was 6 months out, and I was actually up in Washington D.C. briefing my boss, who's a 3-star Force Recon Marine, and he asked me, like, I had to plan, like, in my mind, I was like, all right, gonna go into his office, I'm gonna lay out, hey, here's 15 minutes worth of stuff that I'm working on, then here's my transition plan. Never even got to that, and he was like, Tim, I'm not talking about work. Tell me what your transition plan looks like. And I laughed at him. And he was like, well, it's not funny. What's so funny? And I was like, because I haven't even started. And so he was like, well, this is what you're going to do, is get on a plane and go back to Omaha, Nebraska, and you're going to work on yourself, because you're going to take care of your family. I task you and I task you only. So that kind of gave me some breathing room. But But yeah, was the anxiety there? Yeah, it always is. But I
Hmm.
landed in a good spot. I mean, me and John's got this going on. We're working it. I started my own independent consulting company. I'm still building that thing as a fly, and I had another.
Hey, give a plug. Like, what is your independent consulting? Give a shout out to your company.
Yeah, so in the gig I did out here for the last 3 years, um, I was the SOCOM rep to US Stratcom. So I did all the integration between special operations capabilities into the strategic mission set of what US Stratcom does. So I stood it up, worked it, and every day was a learning experience where
Hmm.
I'm, being pulled into, not only just 1 and 2 stars, but 3 and 4 stars. And I learned a lot. I think there's probably a handful of people on this earth who probably have awareness of the stuff that I worked on. And so I knew that
Hmm.
was going to make me marketable. So anyway, so I started that consulting company. Haven't
Okay.
done anything with it, but well, yeah, I had a different company reach out to me, and they were like, "We don't need your resume. Well, at some point, we're going to need your resume. And, there's no interview, but you're hired if you want the job." So I landed into a good gig. I work remote and I travel quite a bit, but I do some good stuff for a private defense industry company. And
Fantastic.
yeah, so
So
life is good.
your transition has been a little bit easier, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but you kind of fell into, a pathway where the transition was a little bit easier than most, correct?
So I wouldn't say that. I would say I was sprinting with scissors in both hands
Oh
for the
boy.
last, for the last six
Okay.
months. And I mentally prepared myself to, hey, not have a job and how do you feed your family? And then just again, things work out for a reason
They
and
do.
trust, yeah, trust in the process. And I just started giving back to myself. I mean, that kind of goes back to what me and John's been working on is, hey, compassion, not compassion for other people. Well, I mean, yeah, it's compassion for other people, but also compassion for yourself. Allow for some
Yeah.
self-forgiveness and slow down and like just take a time to think. And matter of fact, somebody had made the comment on one of the things we were doing one night for the Honor Foundation, and they're like, "Yeah, I just wanted a job where I could get up, make lunch for my kids, walk them to the school bus." And I started thinking, I was like, "I'll take that a deeper level. I want to be able to do that, but I also want to be present in the moment and
Yeah.
actually enjoy it and not thinking about the next thing." And so I mean, it was hard and it's not perfect, but that's what I try and do every day, and it's working out.
You're
So
you're a blessed man. You're a blessed man. Let's talk about this honor foundation, right? Like let's kind of, I mean, that's kind of y'all's bread and butter, and it's just getting off the ground. Like I know you kind of talked about it a little bit, your episode, John, but for those new listeners that are new to Mind Split Cafe and haven't had the opportunity to listen to your episode, kind of give a brief description of the Honor Foundation and the mission that you guys want to accomplish with your foundation.
Okay, just a real quick correction for you there, Matt. The Honor Foundation is the program that we're going through right now that helps
That is
with
right.
the. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Yeah,
and we have started up the Connect Foundation,
the Connect Foundation. My
and
apologies.
no, not at all. And the idea is to reach out and connect with people, and I'll just kind of give you a practical example of how important it is. Like Tim and I have both been kind of like right beside each other going through this transition piece, and whether we downplay it or not, it's a huge change in life, right? You go from having a job for 30 years and knowing a very good structure of how you advance and how you get paid and all that stuff,
Yeah,
and working very hard to become good at it, and then you go into this ethos, this primordial ooze of your guys' civilian world where you have to go out and get a job and you have to do this and you got to dress a little bit different, and it's just again, it's a huge deal. And
hmm
it's not just about getting a job. It's like, how do you live your life? And, how do you go from having to get up at 6 o'clock every morning to now you got a little bit of time to do your own thing. And,
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
going from completely structured to on your own. That
yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure that is a big head
yeah,
change.
yeah, absolutely. But the idea behind the Connect Foundation is exactly what Tim and I did for each other, right? Like we reached out daily, weekly. If I was having a bad day, I'd give Tim a call, and I'd talk about it, and he'd always lift me up, or he'd tell me how much worse his day was than mine, and kind of put me back into reference. And like that is that bond, that connection between people
Yep.
that make you stronger, right? I said this last time. One of the things that was so important to us is, there's a old Norwegian, almost Viking-ish proverb that says, "Pain shared is pain divided, and joy shared is joy multiplied." And man, like Tim and I have leaned on each other a lot, and
Nice.
it's made our life better, right? It's made it so much better. Everything he learns, he shares with me, and his experiences, and the same with me, and we just push each other up.
Yeah.
So was your relationship and how you guys helped each other, was that the catalyst to you starting the foundation?
I think it was a thread in the rope, right? It was a thread in the blanket. We wouldn't have been able to do it without each other. But I think there were some pretty horrible things that we witnessed with people that didn't have that connection, didn't have that tribe, and watching them, fall into some pretty dark places and eventually kill themselves. That really, really affected us, because they were friends.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So with the Connect Foundation, right? Is it one, okay, how does someone find themselves in the foundation, like getting the help, and what exactly do you do? I know it's a support system, but is it just via Zoom calls? Is it like retreats? Like kind of go into detail a little bit more about what the plan is for the foundation.
So I'll start it off, and then I'll pass it over to Tim. And really, a lot of people don't realize, but some of the people that have the highest probability of transition problems, mental health problems, PTSD, TBI, things like that, there is a pretty robust organization of nonprofits and government organizations that really get after that problem set while you're in the military or getting ready to get out.
Yeah.
On the back side of it, there's not a lot of, almost like a warrior long-term care program or support network. And I went through Home Base up in Boston, which is an amazing program. I think I talked a little bit about it before, but it evaluates you completely, your whole body. It's very holistic. And then it goes through and gives you some very intense tools and training, and like teaches you how to, it teaches you about meditation. It teaches you about journaling. It teaches you about creative avenues that allow you to, like get some of those things out onto paper. And I got a chance to go to that. And then I kind of hooked Tim up with an opportunity to go into that. Tim has been to NICO, which is the military version of the highest level of care you can get. And it also has satellite organizations that kind of branch out across America in some of the concentration areas, and that's Intrepid Spirit. So I've been to the Intrepid Spirit. So between Tim and I, we've nailed all the top level treatment facilities for mental health and PTSD and TBI, combat related trauma things. I think I've put in 10 months into these things by the time it was all said and done of treatment. And I guess the plan for us was, hey, we don't want to have to screen all these people. That's already being done, right? So what we want to do is, if you've been through any of those programs, Home Base, NICO, Intrepid Spirit, then you automatically qualify to be a part of the Connect Foundation. Go ahead, Tim, man, pick her up from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to pile on to what John said, I mean, there's a lot there. When we started talking about this, again, just both, similar experiences, but unique in their own aspect. And there's a lot of organizations out there doing a lot of great things for both active duty and veterans. But there's not enough, right? I mean, like every time I talk to somebody, like I just hear another story, and I'm like, there's not enough people doing enough good things. Like if
Yeah.
you can see one person every day, like just do it. And
Yeah.
so when we look at it from that aspect, and as we build this thing out, and we can go back and forth. So our first event we're looking at doing, we did a dry run last July
I
at a
remember that. I remember John telling me about that. Yeah.
yeah up
Go
at
ahead.
up at a buffalo ranch, and another friend of ours owns it, and that's another crazy story. I mean, I could talk to you all day long and all.
Well, we're gonna bring you back, Tim. Don't worry about it. You're definitely.
Oh yeah,
Like, if you're a friend of
guaranteed for a
John, look,
second part.
yeah, John stuck around for whatever reason. This is his second episode, so you're definitely coming back, my friend, for sure. But go ahead.
I can tell you what though, so I think both John and I, before we even got treatment, I mean, like I crawled my way out of a deep, dark place. Like, and I crawled my way out, and
Wow.
then finally got the treatment for it. And that's another long story, but but yeah, it's just made me think, and I'm just blessed to have like a wonderful family, my kids and my wife. And my wife's a saint. She should have left me time and time again, but I'm the guy who, I love people, but at the same time, like there's some days I just don't want to be around people.
That's
And
all of us. That's
Yeah.
all of us. You're not alone in that, Tim. And let me be the first to tell you, I just met you today, but I'm glad you're here. And I'm not just talking about on our little podcast, I'm just talking about in general. Tim, I am glad you were here, my friend. You were somebody special, and I'm thankful that you're here. You're
So
blessed.
it's fun. It's funny you say that. So when John mentioned, he's like, yeah, if he has a bad day, he calls me or I call. So I called him yesterday, and I got horrible sleep the night before, and he had sent me a text message, and I was like, bro, I am struggling today. And
Uh-huh.
then we just started chatting, and again, it goes back to all the brain injuries and stuff like that. There's
Yeah.
just some of us, you can't sleep, whatever. But I tell you what, like that tribe that we're trying to build, like that's the essence of it. That's the
Yeah.
love and caring that comes out of it, is, just being able to have that support network and have those people where you trust. And I've known John now for God, what, over 20 years. And
Yeah.
That's way too long, Tim. That's way too
yeah, we got a long history, but John's the guy. If I'm ever having a bad day and I need someone to get on an airplane and come out and help me, John's gonna be the first one I call. And
So let me expand on that, Tim. So, obviously, John sends these messages internally, like to all his friends, right? Like motivational, like little text messages. So for a while, he was sending them every day, right? Maybe twice a day sometimes if he was, if he was inspired, right? And then I knew he was going through this Harvard school, right? These classes, and then they kind of teared off. They kind of just fizzled off, right? And so then I wasn't getting him anymore. And then he sent me his headshot, and he was like, "What do you think of this?" I was like, "Man, that's awesome." And that was like at the end of March, and I hadn't heard from him since then. And I texted him the other day, last week, and I was like, "Hey, have you seen my friend John? I haven't heard from him. Have you heard from him? Because this dude used to hit me up all the time. Are we good?" And then he was like, I was thinking the same thing. And so there was that kind of connection. And you know what? John has that spirit in him. And I think it's so awesome that y'all are creating a support system with this Connect Foundation that other people, and I wasn't in the military, but just other people can experience the warmth and the gift that you guys and the talent and the knowledge that you guys are so graciously willing to give, so I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's you guys kind of have like a cheat code because what these people need and how they're feeling and what they've been through. So you're able to provide it on the other side because you've been through it, you've seen it, you've done it. You guys kind of have a little cheat code going on. I like it.
Yeah, Chris, that actually brings it into like the real first part of Connect. Like, how do you make those tribes, right? And you don't make them in the middle of the city, right? You don't make them in the middle of your daily lives where, you know, you got a friend that calls that needs help over here, and then, you know, you got a chihuahua that's eating your socks or something like that. Like life goes on all the time, and that was our idea. Like, take a break from life for a second, right? Like,
Yeah.
come out. Let's go out in nature somewhere for 8 days, and let's get a chance to like really get to know each other in a very fun, immersive way. We've got mentors that, you know, have all gone through those programs and all have been suicidal at one point. They've all learned how to survive, and then now they're thriving because they're starting to give back. So you know, you can get a month of training on how to meditate, or you can get a month of training on, you
Yeah.
know,
You can get
what
YouTube.
benefits
Yeah.
journaling is and all that type of stuff. But man, when you're done with that program and you're sitting there alone and you're, you know, feeling down and you
Yeah.
realize you have to do something, and you pick up a piece of paper and you're just like, journaling, like, what do I do, right?
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Yeah, where do you start with that, right? Like, so all of us have gone through that, and we've picked up some of those tools and we've started to use them, and they've been very beneficial for us. So,
Yeah.
some of the tools like never stuck. Like, I don't think Tim dances out his aggression very well, but you know.
That'll be
I was
for
just
another
about to ask,
episode.
what tools do you guys use?
That'll be
But
for another episode.
yeah,
We'll show videos of Tim dancing. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, he dances out some aggression pretty good, man.
Yeah. So I have a question is, you know, I know the basis of the Connect Foundation is, you know, it's got that military kind of, I guess that the past, right? What if someone is looking for a support system, like say myself, and who was not in the military and is just looking for that support system as well? Is that something that y'all would be open to? You know, I'm curious for
Yeah,
any of the
yeah.
listeners.
question.
We haven't really talked about that. We talked a little bit about like how do we go into the trauma area of like first responders,
Yeah,
because those guys are heroes too, right? It's
of
just
course.
that's not our bread and butter, but I guess trauma is. So,
Yeah, police
but
officers, you know, like
yeah,
they see things.
EMS.
Yeah,
yeah,
homicide
yeah,
detectives. You know, I've
yeah.
got
We have really talked about how to like integrate that in or put in different events like that, or even some blended events, I think would be extremely positive. But we never really talked about the, you know, just having it open
civilian.
for
Yeah,
civilians or non first responders, non-military. But man, I wouldn't be against it. Like, everybody needs a try,
support.
right? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
Absolutely.
you don't have to have been in the military or a first responder to, you know, like have a death in your family,
yeah,
or have, you know, lose your job, or, you know, your company downsizes or something like that. Like,
yeah.
man, trauma happens every day in so many different ways, and the way it affects people, man, that's so individual.
I
That's so
also,
personal.
Yeah,
I also
absolutely.
think, I also think that it could be a positive in the sense that, you know, when you go through this from military and you transition to civilian life, right? And you and I discussed the other day, John, about that kind of that speed round of the interviews that you went through when you met, you know, some CEOs and some CFOs
Yeah.
and so forth. I think maybe kind of mixing it up and having like civilians come in, you
Mhm.
know, could open up to a whole network of like, hey, when you bond over 8 days in,
Yeah.
you know, in nature,
Yeah.
and then that civilian could possibly help that, you know, that person coming from the military
Yeah.
even more with his transition, you know,
Oh, yeah.
because now there's
Yeah.
that bond, that support. So I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, it's your foundation, but I think that would be just a phenomenal idea to expand on it and just kind of like, you know, have a mix, not every time, but just have a mix
Yeah.
every once in a while.
Yeah, and we try to tickle that a little bit, Matt, with the culmination event where we, you know, do some engagements out in town with like the areas that we're at, do a little festival fair type thing of
Yeah.
awareness for veterans and wellness for veterans. And that actually came from one of the places that we're doing events. The city planner suggested it, and we were just like, man, what a great idea. He's like, all these people here in northern Michigan and the Frankfurt area just love their veterans and very patriotic and love to get a chance to help out any way they could. And
Yeah.
and we chewed on that for a little bit and just thought it was a great idea.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
guys-
that's phenomenal.
Well, guys, we're running the time flew by and we're running short on time, but John, Tim, plug the website. How can they find Connect Foundation? How can they get in touch with you if the website's not completely done? Like, what is some phone numbers? Like, how can they find you guys? So we can kind of help get you what you need, from our aspect.
Oh, super simple, right? Like just shoot us an email. We've got a Connect Foundation email. It's simply connect@connecthelp.info. And I think we'll flash it up on the screen somewhere. And
Yeah.
man, you hit that email up and we'll reach back out to you and we'll tell you anything that we want to. I mean, we've got a great website. We're just waiting on the final little touches to finish up on it, and then we're going to turn it on, and it's going to be amazing.
Fantastic.
So,
Yeah, I can't wait to see it full force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, you got any? Go ahead, Tim.
Just one last plug too, like based off
Please.
your last question. Yeah, so we're obviously focused on military and
Of course.
talking first responder things and this and that. But back to your question about like regular civilians, whatever. Man, I would never turn down the opportunity to talk to anybody.
I love that.
Again, like I ran into a dude a couple months ago out in a parking lot somewhere, and he asked me, "What's my purpose?" And I could tell he was struggling with something, and just had an hour-long conversation with him. So, man, if I could save one person's life, I'm willing to do it. And
I love that, Tim.
yeah, so
that's awesome. I'm glad you
love
said
that.
that. That means a lot.
I love that. Well, guys, I am definitely going. Once you open it up to civilians or non-military, it's gonna have to be near a hotel because I'm not a survivalist, right? So I'll stay in the hotel. I don't care if it's a Motel 6 or a Hojo or whatever. I'll stay in the hotel and then I'll meet y'all early in the morning. We'll do all the hiking and bonding and stuff. But I'm going back to the hotel and washing my ass. So yeah.
So a hotel in Dr. Pepper and you're set, right?
Hotel in Dr. Pepper. That's it, guys. That's all I need.
Just so you know, Matt, we ain't trying to rough it at all either, right? Like there's a fine line between
Yeah, y'all are civilians now, man. Ain't no roughing. Y'all don't need to rough
Yeah,
that
you
shit,
don't have to do that anymore.
No, there's a fine line between being hard and being stupid, and I refuse to cross it again.
I love it. I love it. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. And I wish your Connect Foundation all the success in the world. We'll continue to plug it. You'll definitely be back on the show. And however we can help support you guys, just let us know.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely. John,
Always
Tim,
an
thank
honor
you so
being
much
with you
for
guys.
coming on. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry about that. Go ahead, John.
I said it's always an honor being with you guys. You guys are great people, and I love your platform and what you're trying to do. So anything we can do to help you guys, anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise with you. I know Matt and I definitely believe in what you're doing and can't wait to see it take off. So if there's anything we can do to help with that, let us know.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right, guys. Till next week, Mind Splitters. We'll
See
be
you
back.
next Wednesday.
You have a good one.